Hi, folks. Welcome back to Just Ask George. David Wolf here with the one and only head dude, George Lovato Jr.
And my vice dude and co-partner, co-pilot in crime here on the internet.
In media crimes. We have got a great segment for you. Is there money out there? Joining us? Who's joining us today, George?
Terry Suitt in North Florida, in Jacksonville. Has there ever been a song written about Jacksonville, Terry?
Well, not necessarily about Jacksonville, but Leonard Skinner was from here, so all the good rock and roll music came.
We'll take that. We'll take that.
That works.
Terry's one of the long-standing affiliate bankers of BH Capital, and the reason for this segment "Is There Money Out There" is to sort of bring in what Terry's unique skill set has been in the participation of the 24 bankers working with BH Capital, all the affiliates around. He has several unique approaches, very unique way in that he approaches prospect management.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get him here with his experience in the grocery industry, in finance and retail. And in order to finance retail, you've got to have that background in retail. You have to know manufacturing, you have to know agriculture, you've got to know distribution, and that's precisely what he brought to the table when he joined BH Capital and in structured finance for retail. He did a lot of it for one of the largest grocer distributors in the world, actually. And we've become great friends over the years, but I've just truly enjoyed his approach in business development, prospect management, and scrubbing a deal down. Terry, tell us how you do it. How do you scrub a deal down?
We scrub this thing down just like you would at home if you're scrubbing those vegetables down. You want to make sure you get all the dirt off of it. So what we do when we talk about scrubbing a client down is initially, what I like to do is to have an outline or either a condensed business plan from the client to kind of understand what the project entails. Once I've received that, reviewed that, I come back with questions to the client to ask that client directly. What and why does he think that the project would be a success? And what does he see as risk that the project would not be a success? So I let the client make determinations of what his expectations are and what would prevent him in making those successes. I also, once that's done, I've gotten through that point of scrubbing it down. I ask for financial information, personal financial statement. I want to see then what the capabilities of the client are and what those experiences are that he has. Once we've conducted all that, we then go into discussion of creating capital formation and structured financing, what the role of BH Capital is. We then send out what we call an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding. So the client twofold, for the client to understand what to expect from BH Capital, and us to understand what his project is really about. And it's all real general terms and conditions. It's not anything set in stone, and it's a non-binding agreement. Once we have that in hand, we get that back signed by the client. We then contact BH Capital in a conference call, and we all, the client, BH Capital and myself, we then feel like we then have all the tools put together to make an understanding of whether or not this is a project that fits with BH Capital and or if BH Capital fits with the client.
Okay.
That's
all the
That's great stuff.
That really sort of capsulizes. He kind of keeps a pace of moving the prospect through the process, or in some cases they're not ready for prime time, so he doesn't move them through it. It is his opportunity to really drill down and understand whether it's our kind of deal, it's our kind of prospect. If this is really going to be the client we're looking for. And that's what that conference call is all about. And it's to determine whether or not they're the perfect client. And it's really important.
And is there a perfect client, or if you had to describe what you're looking for, Terry Suitt, in terms of a perfect client, what would that be?
Well, there's no such thing as perfect anything, I don't believe. But I think you can narrow that down to where you feel comfortable. And I want to bring one thing back. George was talking about me being in the supermarket industry for so long. On the average, it took us 17 calls, 17 visits, getting in front of that client 17 times to get him to switch from an old supplier to us. So it's a process of going through that scrubbing down period. But a perfect client has experience in the project that he wants to see funded. He also has skin in the game, which is hard-earned capital, cash, or other assets and collateral that he can put into the deal. And they also understand that the banking world has changed tremendously in the last 2 or 3 years, and they're open-minded to looking at what BH Capital can bring to the table in assisting with that formation of capital.
Fantastic. Recently we've had some discussions with a few of Terry's prospects, and they basically, these are a few case in point, have been around and on his radar, in his pipeline for well over a year. And what Terry has done is he's let them sort of move along, go out there and drop their tentacles into the marketplace. And in doing so, he let them find out that there really are limited roads to forming capital. And so his most recent calls have been, so how's that working out for you?
Right. Because if you're the first stop for a prospect, Terry, they may just have to go through a self-discovery in order to really believe that what you're telling them is indeed so.
Absolutely correct. And he does a great job of that. And most recently, you found an article which talked about the BH Capital business model, and this is what Terry does a great job at explaining to prospects and what we do. You might talk a little bit about that. I scooped
to this article. I think it was out of CNBC online, and it talked about the movement towards structured capital. The idea that there's a lot of activity, particularly below 20 million in terms of transaction size, and then also this concept of syndication and participation. Terry, if you would, tell us what that means to this business owner that you are approaching.
Well, syndication has been around for a long, long time. People just didn't realize that that's what it was called, and that simple form is going to your local bank and working with SBA. But a syndication is basically taking a deal and using 2 or more parties to consolidate and make the deal work. So in what we do is we assist in putting together that syndication to make it work. There's different ways of forming that capital. One of the things that the client can do, and we talk about, is they can go to their local bank, but that's kind of expensive. They've got to have 20 to 40% down on putting into that project, along with paying all the third-party fees and what have you. They can also go to private lenders or hard money lenders, but those again, they got put a lot of money down into the project. And they're also going to have to pay rates and terms that are not conducive into being successful. The third way, of course, is doing some kind of syndication through Wall Street investment banking groups or merchant banking groups. But a lot of times that's so expensive also because they're going to end up taking anywhere upwards to 10% of a deal, and plus maybe some warrants of a couple of percent. So they've got, the cost of it just prohibited for a small individual company. And I think the clients need to understand that you don't have to be a Fortune 500 company to be in the syndication. There is, for that $1 million client to that $20 million, there is a way of being able to do the same thing, but be very, very cost effective, and that's looking at a syndication using BH capital.
It's actually sort of interesting in that article really drilled down into the fact that banks are mitigating their risk by doing this. You know, Wall Street has always syndicated or participated its transactions. There were very few, even when I took my very first company public, there were probably 60 different participants in that syndication. And that was a small $2.5 million deal in its first phase. So it's been around forever. Banks are realizing they could mitigate their risk, but the cost of going down that path, utilizing a tried and true Wall Street method, is expensive.
Okay.
You've got 10% commission, as Terry said. You got 2% unaccountable. You have $50,000 to $125,000 as a front-end loaded third-party retainer for expenses for the Wall Street firm. Their legal, their accounting, their third party that they want to, their third-party opinions that they want inclusive in the deal. And so by the time you're done, your cost of capital, you're looking at something in the neighborhood of 25-30%. That's not unusual, including now if you add a little debt on that, then you've got an interest rate that has to be attractive. So you add that on to the cost of capital. It starts to get expensive. You go down the path of a commercial bank, you've got to have a big stake in the game. You're going to have a big down payment to finance that 20-40%, as Terry's saying. Plus, a lot of banks now aren't accepting applications, serious, large applications, without having an earnest deposit on the application. In some cases, in almost all cases, it's refundable. But there's such a narrow scope, as we're experiencing now, in what they will do by themselves. In syndication, there's a much broader scope. And I think we probably need to clarify that for people, that if they're standing alone inside a transaction, the bank has a product and they'll stay inside the four corners of that product. In syndication, it loosens things up a little bit, because you've got more freedom for a structured approach that it's probably way outside that box.
Mm-hmm. And this could include equity and debt, right, guys?
Exactly.
Right.
Banks, not equity. Although banks, from time to time, and we've seen it over the decades we've been in the business, will participate in equity. I can go back in time to actually a grocery deal. Terry, it was called the bag and save concept, where you bagged your own groceries. I'm sure you remember that.
Interesting.
And all of those stores were financed by a single bank, but as an incentive to finance all that real estate. And I think they had some like 20-some stores at one point in time. The bank took an equity position along with being paid for the use of its money.
Interesting.
So that happens, but that's not
It's
every
rare.
day. But
Okay.
but if you need, in some cases, Terry will bring a deal and I'll say, gee, this looks like a great deal, but it needs an equity strip.
Right.
And,
Right.
How many times do we see that where the deal's just a little thin?
We see that a lot. That doesn't mean it's a bad project. It just means that we need to massage it with the client and let them understand when we're talking about equity, not necessarily that they put up that equity. That equity strip may come from an outside partner that may be just a limited partner with someone taking him, the client taking him out down the road.
That's a huge distinction.
So it means a lot. Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of the clients in the past, they haven't been as sophisticated as they are today. They felt like that they don't want to lose that control. It's their project.
Sure.
They want to make sure that
Yeah.
And there are a lot, we can get into all the ways they can control the deal, but
regardless of how much cash they have in or not in an equity way.
Equity,
right?
sometimes putting in an equity strip enhances the deal, mitigates the risk. There's things that you can do with the equity, creating principal and interest reserves on the debt portion of the transaction. Just adding liquidity to supplement working capital needs.
Yep.
A lot of different things can happen with that, but it's important for clients to know sometimes some deals just can't use 100% debt. And that's what structured finance does, is analyze that process, plug in those solutions, to the benefit of the client that they don't normally see because they just don't understand that game. And that's essentially what our business model does. We bring that, we plug that. That's plug and play expertise that we can typically stick in the process. Terry, tell us a little bit about what you're looking for in 2012, the types of clients you're looking for, the types of deals you're looking for, and tell us a little bit about your process in managing your pipeline and some of the things that kind of get your blood flowing.
Well, I really honestly think 2012 is going to be a great year for us at BH Capital for a lot of reasons. One is I think that the prospects that are out there, they've weathered the storms of the last couple of years. They understand now that they can't go to their local banks.
Good point.
We've plowed through and weeded out the weak ones that just won't compromise at all. So I feel like that we've got a good variety of clients that we're working with right now that are in retail, that are in manufacturing, that are in real estate backed transactions that really and truly end up being good solid projects for 2012. I think that now that they see the market maybe turning around a little bit, but they know, again, that they need assistance with that structure. They understand that it's just not, it's the old way. It's like an Edsel. It's a car and it ran great, but it ran its course. The old banking system has run its course, but the tried and true syndicated transactions have been going along for many years. It's proven, it works. So I think that our client base that we've got on the radar for 2012, they understand that.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Well,
fantastic.
Great stuff today.
See, this was good for you because you were able to hear it from one of the seasoned guys. We've got some guys that have been with us over 15, some approaching 20 years.
Yeah.
Terry's, we're all contemporaries age-wise. Some of the guys are older than us. Terry's method is very dynamic, yet it's progressive. And it's been progressive in that he's been adapting to the changing marketplace. Unlike, a couple of my old salts who, still kind of going down the path, using syndication, participation, structured finance. But in terms of business development and client development, Terry has a pipeline, I think that's well over $4 billion in its total right now. And it's constantly growing. 2012, I would anticipate that his pipeline will grow to well over double that. And that's a testament to his management system. It's very, very, very good, and he knows when he sees a good deal. And I appreciate all the hard work he does.
Well, like as the farmers, they have to cultivate and they have to sow that field and plow that field. We had an old saying in the grocery industry: you have to grow or go. And that's what you have to do, is you have to increase that pipeline. You always have to be looking down the road 6 months and 12 months down the road, because what you want is that pipeline to continue moving forward. You want to move those customers that 6 months ago weren't quite ready. You want those to start cultivating and start being ready to close. And then you've got somebody else always in line.
Right,
Fantastic.
right. And it's important to know for those listening who are probably the business owners seeking capital that that's a process that we respect and honor, and your deal may not be ready right now, but work with us and work with Terry to do that cultivation process and go out to the market and see what your options are and have an informed view, so when you come back to us, you'll understand what our approach is.
Bingo. Terry, thanks for your time today. We carved you out of that good Jacksonville weather. We're down here in the 20s and 30s. You're up there close to 60 degrees. We know that you've got your shorts, your Bermuda shorts, at the ready in case the temperature suddenly rises, and we'll stay here with our long sleeves and our hats and coats.
But we'll be visiting soon.
I understand, but 60 here in North Florida is wintertime.
Okay.
Terry, thanks so much for joining us, folks. It's Just Ask George, www.bhcapitalltd.com for more information about all things and the world of structured finance.
Structured finance and beyond. Thanks, Terry. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.